Hi, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show with myself, Neil Geddes-Ward, and fellow Paranormal Peep Show host, Andy Chaplin. Andy, how are you?
Recovering at the moment, Neil. It's festival season, and I just did a hardcore weekend of about 3 days of non-stop, and now I'm having a break, and then there's going to be another 3 days the next weekend. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you said recovering, I was thinking, what, from COVID again? But obviously, you got over that now. So,
oh yeah, twice. Yeah.
Yeah. You're fully immersed back in society then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
저국의 동쪽 관문을 지켜선 제10군단 총대를 군단장 고명수 중장이 이끌고 나갑니다. 높은 산 험한 영 의진 섬 초속 그 어디를 가보아도 절세 위인들의 성스러운 군용도 자욱이 뜨겁게 어려 있어 전설도 백두산악의 기상 넘치는 제12군단 총대가 군단장 고인철 중장의 인설하에 기세당당인 나가를 들이고 있습니다. 강력한 군력은 민족의 존엄을 담보하고 국가의 위상을 만방에 떨친다는 것을 전진하는 저 화성터의 우롱찬 동음이 말해주고 있습니다. 우리 후대들을 위해서라도 우리는 강해야 한다. 우선 거의 땅크병들 선두에 오종수 소장이 서 있습니다. 수리개들이 엄원남 소장의 뒤를 따라 행진해 갑니다. 저국의 동쪽 관문을 지켜선 제10군단 총대를 군단장 고명수 중장이 이끌고 나갑니다. 높은 산 험한 영 의진 섬 초속 그 어디를 가보아도 절세 위인들의 성스러운 군용도 자욱이 뜨겁게 어려 있어 전설도 백두산악의 기상 넘치는 제12군단 총대가 군단장 고인철 중장의 인설하에 기세당당인 나가를 들이고 있습니다. 강력한 군력은 민족의 존엄을 담보하고 국가의 위상을 만방에 떨친다는 것을 전진하는 저 화성터의 우롱찬 동음이 말해주고 있습니다. 우리 후대들을 위해서라도 우리는 강해야 한다. 우선 거의 땅크병들 선두에 오종수 소장이 서 있습니다. 수리개들이 엄원남 소장의 뒤를 따라 행진해 갑니다.
now, talking of deaths and that, you remember I spoke in the last show about my father passing away in April, and prior to him dying, I had a strange dream that was kind of prophetic, connected with him.
I do indeed.
I'll run
us past what it was, because I vaguely remember you talking about this. But
so in the dream, I found myself laying in the back seat of a car, not in the front. I was laying in the back seat of a car, laying down. And suddenly the back door opened and I looked across and there was a couple of strangers. They seemed kind of familiar, but they were strangers to me at the same time, which is the weird thing about dreams. And they said, "We got some bad news for you. There's been an accident and Stefan's dead." And I thought, who's Stefan? And I woke up, actually physically woke up from the dream because it shocked me awake. And I thought, oh, I don't like the feeling of that dream. And I thought, but who the hell is Stefan? I don't know anyone called Stefan. And anyway, I managed to get back to sleep. And 3 hours later, I was woken by my sister-in-law to say, your dad's gone in hospital and he's going to pass away soon. So stand by the phone. And I thought, oh, my God, And I thought it must be connected somehow with that dream, that weird perhaps prophetic dream. But I still couldn't tally up who this Stefan was and what was the mystery with that. And we spoke to Ben about it and he was a bit mystified by it. So, Ben, if you're listening, here's something that might interest you. A couple of weeks later, I was at a psychic developing circle here in Weymouth, and I don't really know the people apart from the tutor there. So these are all new people to me. But we all had to do a meditation, and I'm absolutely crap at meditating. So I thought, okay, we had to kind of draw pictures from the meditation to kind of like symbolize what we'd seen, and we all kind of try and read each other's drawings. And I thought, well, I'll draw the drawing of my dream with me in the back seat and the two strangers looking through at me. And at the end of it, I explained it to the 3 or 4 people that I was grouped up with and sort of said, this is the dream I had. And my father then died 4 hours later after I had this dream. But I said, I don't know who this Stefan is. And the girl that was in this group, she went, and I said, oh, you're going to tell me now that you know someone called Stefan. And she goes, well, kind of. She goes, I did a reading for someone a little while back, and I brought through this guy called Stefan. And she said that apparently he had been in a car accident and he was in the back seat of this car, but got killed. And so the drivers of the car, his mates, decided to take him out the back seat and put him in the front seat, in the driver's seat, to blame him, saying it was him that was driving. So he caused his own death by dangerous driving. So that the blame would be shifted from them. And he was coming back through this woman to tell her family, or his family, what had actually happened. So he was actually in the back seat of the car, this Stefan. Now, isn't that weird?
Bizarre. And you didn't know this girl prior?
No, never. That was the first time I met her that night.
That's really weird.
Yeah, absolutely freaky weird. Yeah.
And it makes you wonder about the nature of reality and the nature of kind of past, present, future. Because if there was one aspect that didn't come together with that, i.e. she couldn't make the meeting, or you couldn't make the meeting or something, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, would have never known. Yeah.
All of these pieces would have needed to be together in order for that to kind of take place. Very strange.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, I think, well, so what does that prove to me? What does that do? How does that change my life apart from us discussing it on the show? You know,
it just seems like a really abstract way. And the thing is, like working with spirit myself, sometimes spirit have abstract ways of getting messages across to people, in ways that we don't quite understand, but then make sense later on, which is very odd. Well,
interestingly enough, just prior to us recording, our guest, who we shall bring on in a second, has had a very abstract way of being told about the passing of people in our family with birds. So we might as well bring her on at this topical moment. So I'd like to welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show our guest this evening, Julie Phelps. Are you there, Julie?
I am.
Hello, Julie. How are you doing?
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Well, as you heard there, we were talking about the death of my dad and the strange dreams that kind of followed it, and then even the follow-up sequel to do with this Stefan. Now, you just told me prior to us recording the show about sort of involvement of birds predicting a death. Can you run that past us again?
I've always had a close relationship with birds, communication-wise. I can understand to a certain level, not just birds, but trees and other things. It's about tuning in. So I can communicate with different animals. And my father was ill, and I'd gone to work as normal, and I stopped off at a garage to fill up with petrol on the way home. And two crows were up in the tree, and they started squawking directly at me, and I knew what they were saying. They were telling me that my father had passed. So I just knew it, what they were kind of beaming into me. And I said, I thanked them for the message. And then I went home. And when I got home, my late husband was there, and he said to me, I've got some, I don't know how to tell you this. I've got some really sad news to tell you. I says, it's okay. I know. I says, my father's passed away. And I told him the crows told me. Mm-hmm. Now, him being part Native American, he didn't blink an eyelid at that, because it's normal there. I mean, that day he'd seen a deer as well stand stock still at the bottom of our creek, because I was in Canada, and that was very unusual, the way it reacted. So that had occurred that day as well. So these are like signs that I got used to seeing. And I've learned a lot more about Native American traditions, and also being thankful about things, and tobacco offerings and things like that to the native spirits.
It's interesting because, you talk about your husband was part Native American and you was in Canada. Now, here we go, some freaky coincidence time, is that my girlfriend and I are friends with a lady called Juliet. And she lived in Canada and was married to a Native American chief guy of a tribe. But now she's living back in England, or sorry, Scotland actually at the moment. So that's a bit of a strange coincidence. A Julie and a Juliet both living in Canada and being married to Native American guys. That's kind of interesting.
He was part Lakota. So he also was at Wounded Knee in the 1970s. Now, this wasn't the original Wounded Knee, but there was another Wounded Knee incident in the 1970s, and he was there. He got shot at and he got shot and things, but they had a standoff there with the government, FBI and all the rest of them. But that's a long story, actually, so I won't go into that right now.
I've never heard of Wounded Knee, so apologies if I show my ignorance. But briefly, what is that then for our listeners?
Well, Wounded Knee originally was Lakota, and it was way back, way back. It was in the 1800s, where there was a massacre of Lakota Sioux Indians, and then that's where the name got Wounded Knee. But it was in Dakota area, because that's where the Sioux tribe are. And but in the 1970s, like Russell Means, who's well known, he's passed on as well. He was well known with others, Dennis Banks and others, who wanted the Native American traditions to come back because they were prevented from doing any of their traditions. They were treated appallingly, and there was land grabs going on, even more so with the reservation land. I mean, they'd been ebbing away. And it got to the point of around Wounded Knee that they made a stand, and they literally made a stand. I mean, they had tanks there, they had guns, they had FBI, they had snipers to try and take them out. My husband was, because he was more white, he would like, a lot of them had just come back from Vietnam, the Indians, and they were brilliant. They were used very much on the front lines in Vietnam because of their abilities to become invisible, shall we say, because of techniques. So they'd already dug like trenches that they couldn't see. So this is how they were getting out. And then my husband would then sneak to a car and then drive into town to get supplies because they were held up in the church in around Wounded Knee. I don't know the actual location of this church, but I do know the church. But yeah, they were being, several of them, I think some of them got killed. But my husband was, as I said, he got shot as well. He got shot in the shoulder. But eventually the government did agree to talk with them, and they did allow them to do their ceremonies after that. But then they started to target them. The FBI started to target them to take them out one at a time. So they were being murdered, but they did kind of retaliate a bit, which I won't go into because luckily most of the people involved are no longer, in that respect, no longer with us. I couldn't talk about it otherwise. But they did retaliate against the FBI, and then they stopped killing them because they took the war back to them, because they tracked them back. So, but it was a case of life and death. It wasn't a case of, just being vindictive or something like that. And then my husband was down in Guatemala with more native, more Sioux, mainly Sioux, but other whites as well, trying to help certain tribes down in Guatemala who were being exterminated, genocided by the cartels, but Sandinistas and Contra. But there was bad Sandinistas, there were bad Contra, and it was all money, CIA, drug running, you name it, all to sort of develop that. I know my husband was involved in taking out one of the generals down there. He sniped, he was a very good shot, and he took him out, and then they managed to escape on horseback. So yes, he was well versed in world affairs, shall we say, even back then.
Wow.
How did you meet your husband, out of interest?
I did meet him on the internet, actually, but I felt a real connection with him. And yeah, it was definitely true love. But unfortunately, 2018 he was suicided. So, and that's why I'm back in Britain. So he was taken out, basically.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Julie.
Well, my background, my conventional background side, not that there is that much convention, but anyway, I started off really mainly in the forces, the RAF, as an aircraft mechanic, aircraft engine, so one of about 13 in the country.
And for our international followers, that would be the Royal Air Force.
Yes, the Royal Air Force, yeah. And later on, after going through deprogramming with Sam Parks, a lot more came out about that because I had screen memories put in about certain instances that occurred there. But anyway, and then later on, the very day I left the Royal Air Force, I started at Marconi. It was Marconi at that point, and it was space and military, advanced space and military microchips, or semiconductors as we call them. And I was quality control on that. And that was a Lincoln site, Lincoln Donington Road site. So we're working on very advanced microchips. And then from there, I spent several years doing that. We did certain things for the Cassini project, microchips for that, but most of them we didn't know what they went into, but we knew they were very much more advanced than what was known publicly, shall we say. They were very much the forerunner of the microchips. And talking with other people and knowing about other people, like with Miles, through Miles Johnson, the Basis Project, you get to know other people. So Helen Porter, she was working at Marconi down south near Farnborough, and they had a grey invasion of their top secret sort of designs, and they couldn't stop them. So the greys just beamed in.
Is this Neil? Is this the lady that we interviewed to do with seeing the grey with the blue thing on its chest? And it.
I'm not sure. Helen Porter, she's an older lady now. She worked at Marconi before me. She worked in the 70s.
Not Hillary. Not Hillary, no. Hillary Porter rather than Helen Porter.
Oh, Hillary. Yeah, it could be Hillary.
Yeah, I think we
Beams International.
I'm dyslexic, so I sometimes get names wrong.
Yeah, I think we've interviewed her, Neil.
She was a draftswoman.
Yeah. So
we are talking about Hillary then. Yeah. We have. I think we have interviewed her. Oh gosh.
Yeah, she walked into. She's definitely been. It might have been actually, Neil. She did a talk
at my group.
At your group, and
yes.
she and from the story from I heard is that she walked in and she saw this grey, and there's something about like a blue light that emitted from it, or it shot out a blue light. I think from memory. Does that ring bells with you, Julie, in terms of what Hillary told?
Yes, it does actually. Yeah. It's about names, as I said, I get really difficult with names.
Yeah. Cool. So she experienced this. Were you were working with her on the same project?
No, I wasn't. I was at a total different site. But I joined the Marconi just after the Marconi suicide murders. Well, I call them murders. Right. The way they died was not normal, because there was a number of high-level designers and things that were all just so happened to die in the most horrific ways.
I remember this being on the news in the 80s, and the thing is, my dad worked at Marconi Underwater Systems at the time in the mid to late 80s as a technical illustrator stroke draftsman, and I remember thinking, God, all these deaths with Marconi, I hope my dad's not next or something, you know. So what do you know about that? Because I've heard things about this, like the Black Goo and stuff. I mean, what's your take on that then?
Well, with the Black Goo, later on, this is a very strange aspect. When younger, right from the age of 15, I was like lent towards the esoteric, even first towards the satanic, and then the white esoteric, or the positive side. And there's a reason for that, which I could go into. This was because of trauma-based mind control I went through. which I wasn't aware of because it was so well done. It wasn't until I went through deprogramming and it was spotted by Simon Parkes, who saw that I'd been through Illuminati mind control, that then I started to help. You know, he supported me along with another group. And on top of that, my own work, because you can't escape the mind control until you really have to work hard at it. Because as soon as I started to escape it, I got targeted heavily.
Can you give us some examples of, because is it quite subtle, or is it quite harsh but you don't remember it? Or can you give us some examples of how it is?
Vividly about what happened. I remember aspects, right? I remember when they initially traumatized me as a young girl. Now, Simon said it must have been around 6, but I don't know if it was 6 or 9, but I know I was, you know, small. And I was taken into an underground base, and I remember there being like a grey steel door which had the paint like a ship grey paint, and like these grey lights that were very old, you know, the sort of grey lights that were enamel. And it was there was no windows, and there was no door handle on the inside of the door. And I mean, I was terrified. And what happened then was they brought a young girl and a young boy into the room. And these guys who brought them in, they were all dressed in black, but they had no epaulets. It was like a military uniform, but there was no insignia on their arms or anything. They were just jet black uniforms. And what they, this is a bit more difficult for me to say, but I'm trying to keep calm, is they made us all draw straws. I mean, we were all in a state of panic. You've got to realise this. But they forced us all to draw straws, and I drew the short one. But even at that age, I was in a state of panic, even more so then, because, you know, even then I'd watched certain things that had said, well, if you draw a short straw, you've had it. Anyway, they told me I had to pick between the boy or the girl to basically be killed. And I didn't want to do it, but they forced me to, and I picked the boy. And basically they killed him in front of me in a horrendous manner. And they kept saying, this is your fault, this is your fault, this is your fault. And that was just too much for my little mind. And I totally then went into this almost like a black cube, black hole. I totally withdrew from all sensory outside. They totally broke me at that point, even as a child. And all I remember is like total blackness. I couldn't see, hear, or anything. I'd totally almost like gone into a catatonic state. And what they obviously did then is they had a mechanism then to actually then start to induce programming into you. This is how they split. It's like disassociation. They split that part off. So your consciousness has left your body because it can't cope with the situation you're in at that point. And then they utilize that by then programming in alters, which I had 4 alters. And then they program the alters, and then they add programs to those alters. So, and this goes on, you know, and I do remember electric shock as well. These came back later. Now, the girl who survived, I was paired up with her. And when I was paired up with her, they used a technique to actually threaten to kill her if I did not do X or Y. That was another technique they used. And they used the Alice in Wonderland mind control program, which I have aspects of. I mean, I've got a lot of pictures and things that I've done in the past about showing the equipment they used and things like that. I have got some of them here. But I have met her now. She is now in Chile, and we recognized each other from the SSP. So she and me, we are now in communication. So there's about 5 of us now that are in communication online from all over the world, who worked together in the past or present, you know. So this is kind of confirmation, but I've had a hell of a lot of more confirmation. It's like, it was only a couple of months ago now that I had Jacob Rothschild send me a friend's request on Facebook and things like that. These things, and I screenshot it. I thought, right, I didn't say yes because they were the ones who brought me back as a child, because later on there was this ritual that occurred. Now I was supposed to go to a wedding, but it was insisted that I go because I was the last of the female line. And when the night before, when my parents I was separated from them that night, and I stayed with this lady who was getting married the next day. Well, she has a royal connection. And I remember a ritual occurring. This was very much like Eyes Wide Shut sort of ritual. And what it was a kind of, they were buying me. Basically, the Rothschilds bought me at that point. No choice in the matter. This was just what occurred. So hence, I was then later on trained in various ways as an asset, lightly because of my bloodline, because we have Rathbones in our family history, and they connect with the Rothschilds in a kind of roundabout way, you know, how the family lines split up and things like that. And this is where where I've worked out, like, there's bloodlines, and I've talked to others as well about this, and we did get that. And there is another bloodline which I won't talk about, but this is why they're after certain bloodlines, and also DNA and past life, because, like Simon pointed out, I'm Palladian as a soul, so I'm a Palladian soul, and I have been up to a Palladian ship. And this was after my targeting started, after I come out the mind control and that, yeah, or was breaking free. There's been a lot of work. It wasn't just instantaneous. So this is, it's all right, Raven, sorry. I was just wondering if I've got the pictures here. I've got various ETs and stuff here. I'll put them to the side.
When this was going on, Julie, was it? I'm trying to kind of like work out the physical practicalities of it. Was it a case that you were abducted by either aliens or my labs or whatever, and physically kind of brought out of your house, or was it kind of like you were brought out etherically, consciously?
More recently, what they do is they take you physically, and then they tune you into the equipment they've got, which is like, I recall, like this kind of very clean room atmosphere, because I've worked in clean rooms, like very white computer systems, and a chair. The chair was white as well, but there's equipment that clamps onto you, and they connect you up to the machine. So from that, they get a complete download of your biosignatures, and kind of your consciousness, it's not totally downloaded into the machine, but they can copy it. It's like a copy of your it's very advanced. It's not like what you see on the mainstream, although they're starting to bring in highlights of these things into mainstream now. But it's you got to realize a lot of the stuff is very much advanced of what they're showing. But they are starting to show these things. So it's kind of
But when you were a child, like what was happening? Describe how you were taken and when you were taken.
Well, I remember the first time I was very, very young. So I was, oh God, I was 18 months, 2 years, something like that. And I remember playing with these little aliens or other beings. But I mean, they were sort of over a foot, but I wasn't very big, so they were like my sort of size.
Yeah.
And I was playing with them, but all that stopped when I got this trauma-based mind control. But I still had very much psychic events throughout my life. You know.
So describe how you were taken. What would happen?
Well, depends which age. I can't recall how I was taken when I was a child. I just remember being there. So that
what I'm trying to work out is like whether you were kind of like your body was kind of still, you know, let's say it happened at night or whatever, your body might have still been in bed, but they've taken your consciousness and did all of this kind of thing, or whether it was a case of they physically picked you up and then kind of like moved you.
There's both. So when I was very young, I would separate from my body.
Right.
And then more later on, I have had more physical, taking me physically, and I have a few times through my life. I mean, there's probably many times I haven't recalled. I mean,
can you remember who's taking you, whether it's the alien greys or whether it's military people or both?
Both. It's not just and I only recall the alien greys twice, I think, but reptilians, yeah.
Right.
Now,
can you describe them?
Now, there was about 5 years before my husband died, so I'm not very good with dates and things like that because I'm a dyslexic. But anyway, going back about a bit over 5 years now, me and my husband were both abducted by reptilians. Obviously I don't think people realize when you're face to face with a reptilian how horrific it is. They are awful creatures. They are extremely scary. They project this fear into you. They're just horrific. You know, it's just not like meeting a creature on Earth at all. And me and my husband were in a lineup we'd been abducted and taken to a lineup in New Mexico, and I found the location. I've got the location, which I can share with you afterwards if you want. I've got the actual Google Maps location from above, which confirms where we were, because the fencing's there, the building's there, and there's a strange building by it. And what happened is, it was like we jolted awake, and obviously you react very quickly, although it was an absolute shock. We were surrounded by both sides by like builders fencing, you know, like the temporary fencing that builders have.
Yeah.
And there was a long lineup of people. There was about at least 50 and maybe more people, and they were in twos. And they were and it was heading towards this warehouse. Now, I could feel, you know, the air on my feet. I could feel everything. I was literally totally coherent. And as you do, you instantly look around, and I saw this Draco Reptilian behind the fence, and there was a number of them. There wasn't just one. And these were the soldiers. They weren't the Alpha Draco with the wings. These were the soldiers. And they must have been about, well, the fence, which was about 6 foot, came to the waist level. So that gives you an idea. They were about 12 foot high. So I don't know if you can.
Move it. There we go. Yeah.
You could send maybe a scan of that.
Yeah, maybe send you a scan of that.
You.
But yeah, and they had a tabard on, which was very much like a Roman tabard, and it had like patches, like leather scale things on it. And this one was holding like a black rod that was a few feet long. And I didn't know what this was, but another SSP person told me what it likely was, which was a weapon. Well, I thought, well, they don't need cattle prods because they're all under mind control, so they don't need because I was thinking, is it a cattle prod or something? And anyway, me and my late husband, we'd always said, because at this time we were sort of like ISIS and all that, I said, if we ever find ourselves in a situation where we were extreme danger or liable to face death, we're not going to go quietly. We're not going to go meekly like you see them just sitting there while they get their heads chopped off with ISIS or something. We said, no way are we going to do that. So me and my husband looked at each other because he was out the hypnosis at this point. And we knew we didn't need to say anything. I was absolutely terrified, but we didn't need to say anything. We weren't going to just give in. And plus, at this point, what started to occur, they'd taken other people into the warehouse, and you heard the most horrific screams from the warehouse, which we knew they were killing people in the warehouse. We thought, well, I'm not going in there. Let's trigger them to kill us or something, you know. And the only thing I could see is as the Draco took 2 people in, there was a gap at the end of the fence. But I knew there were chances of his escape was 0 because the reptilians are extremely fast. Their muscle structure is very bulky, but they're a lot faster than our muscle structure. They're very, very fast. I thought, well, at least it might trigger them to kill us or something before we get in there. That was my only hope. I thought that was it. I'm dead. I had no thought of survival at that point. I just thought, well, let's see if we can trigger a quick death. Anyway, at this point, obviously the reptilian had already sussed we were out of mind control, and maybe this was a test anyway for us, particularly because both me and my husband, he had psychic abilities, which is another reason why we were very close like that. And he forced me to go over to him. So he forced me to walk over to the reptilian, and then he lifted me up and brought me to him, but calmed me down psychically. And then he said to me psychically, don't judge us because you eat meat, because he could hear my voice knowing that this was a butcher's lineup and we were just cattle going in there. So he was saying, don't judge us, because at that point I did eat meat. But since then I can't eat meat. I cannot, because every time I try and eat meat, his voice comes back. And also I just see the cows in the same position as I was in. And I just can't do it. I can eat fish, but that's it. I can't eat any meat anymore at all. When I tried after that, I just felt so physically sick, I couldn't do it. My husband did eat meat after that, but he was very much calmer than me because he was so military like, and he was about the toughest person I'd ever met. So he was a lot tougher than me, and he agreed everything that I said and everything. For him, he said what they told him was this. He said that if their own children or young reptilians do not make the grade, they will eat them as well. They're tough. There's no kind of, caring forgiveness. The most they'll see a human as is a pet. They don't see, apart from that, it stems from either the vermin or their food source or exploit, or and that's how they see humans, something to exploit in whatever way they want to exploit. They're not a friendly species at all. In fact, this is a prison planet, and a lot of things have been brought here.
How did you get out of that situation?
They obviously decided that, which was probably the reason we go back to the Black Goo, is I was already an asset and working for them to a certain level, which I didn't know at the time. Now, I do recall being put into a vat of Black Goo. And I remember when younger, like just telling this black substance to go around my body and heal my body and things like that, which at the time seemed normal. on reflection, it's like, how could I have thought that was normal when my life was like, it just very odd. Now I've been broken free of the mind control. I understand it more, and I've also had the black goo removed by going through form of hypnosis, which is the Dolores Cannon hypnosis, which a friend did with me because I trusted her, who very much helped me anyway.
So why would you get rid of the black goo if it helps and heals you?
But it's also a control.
Right.
It also helps the Draco because it's connected to the Draco, and it's like a tag to people, and also it's a form of control as well. So you're right in the fact that there's a positive side to it, but when it was removed, I almost felt like disconnected. I felt a sense of loss when it was removed, like I was disconnected from being wired up to another consciousness. So it took me kind of a couple of days to get used to that, not being kind of connected like that anymore, which is kind of like what they want to bring in with all these, jibby jabbers and all the rest of it, apart from the side effects if you survive. But apparently not everybody survives the black goo either, from what Miles has interviewed other people, that there's a lot of people don't survive the contact with the black goo. So it may depend on your genetic makeup.
Can we go back to the beginning of the black goo? Just let people know what we're talking about, because I think I understand what we're talking about, black goo, but there's going to be people saying, what on earth is this black goo? So the way I understand it, it was located during the Falkland Islands War. Is that right? Around the Falkland Islands or something?
Yes. Now there's various types of black goo. There are some in asteroids which have been involved with the reptilians mine it from asteroids, but other things, there's sentient black goo, so black goo from Earth, and there's black goo that's from off planet. Now the Draco use it in their computer systems. It's like a liquid quantum. It allows the quantum computers to run. So if you've got a very advanced quantum computer, you're going to be using black goo in there. I don't care what they say, they will be using black goo because it can allow that extra amount of not just function for a computer, but also it's a living computer, because black goo is a living material. But black goo has been basically altered. It's not necessarily negative, but it's been altered by the Draco to be basically programmed or mind controlled like humans into being a more negative substance for them to use how they wish. So its natural state is not necessarily negative. It's very complicated, obviously, the universe. There's good and bad in everything. Even within Draco, they're very strict hierarchy, so it's very hard for any of them to break free of the system. But there are positive reptilians too. They're not all negative. Like, you can't, not all reptilians are bad, and all the rest of it. I've increasingly, and it's all about perception too. As you expand your perception and your consciousness, you can then communicate with more beings. So the very negative beings, obviously, they're a lower vibration. And then the more positive beings are higher vibration. So you could say higher dimension, all that lot, but it's just higher dimension and lower dimension to me. And because it gets complicated. Oh, well, they're from the 8th or the 9th dimension or whatever. Well, it's just higher vibration, and some are very high vibration, extremely wise beings and extremely powerful beings. But I have been up to the Pleiadian ship, and that separated what happened. I've got various videos of like energies being around me, and we just started to record them because we started to see them around me. So we thought, let's record just us walking, and we'd see these things flying around me. It's like, okay. Anyway, one of these came to my chair, and this was when I was being heavily targeted with like microwaving, and I went up. They separated my body, so they separated. That was not a physical beaming up. That was separating my etheric self. And then I found myself in a chair on the ship, and what a difference. Apart from the healing they did, I could walk around the ship. I actually understood. I went into the center of the ship, and it was one of the Palladian ships, which was like, I've got one up here actually. I don't know if I can take it down right now, but basically the sort that are like the sphere, and it's got the crystal work going down from the center, so it's a sort of round type, and that is crystalline, and there's a major crystal runs through the center with plasma energy in the center of that creates the energy field, and then the energy flows around it like the earth, like the North and South Pole. So that creates the field around the ship for protection and everything else. But what I noticed more than anything else is there was no negative there. There was zero negative influences. Here, it's not until my consciousness expanded, my perception expanded. After I was there for a while, I met various beings there, and I came back down to earth. It was like a clamp went on my head. It was like this constriction of my consciousness and perception. And oh my God, it was so understanding that this is a prison.
So what's the point of this planet then? Is it a place to dump souls that are troublesome in the universe?
No, it's the place which the Drake, because we're in the Draco Empire is quite vast. Now you have the Federation that are kind of in between it, but it's more ruled by the Draco than it is free from them, because they know how powerful they are. So there's this uneasy kind of Cold War, but they don't want to really have a war with the Draco because they know how much damage will occur, or they don't like the Draco, but the Draco then take advantage of the situation. But Earth is in a situation now, right? Earth was a place where they put people like I'd had regression and I was killed by the Draco on another ship on another planet. So they soul trap you and bring you here, because they can't kill you, because you will come back again. You can't, you cannot be killed because we're eternal. So instead they trap you on the planet. Now that hasn't always been the case for Earth, but it is at the moment. And what's happening now is there's a bit of more of a standoff. There are benevolent ETs who want to help, but they can't directly whack the Draco, because then it'll be galactic war again. But they have had certain agreements with them. So that's why it's about agreement, about a harvest of humans, but they can't just harvest without agreement. Hence why a few things occurred recently. Beginning of the pandemic, you had this all around Europe and everything. You had to opt out of organ donation. You can look it up on the British government site to opt out. Before that, you had to opt in for organ donation, but it doesn't say organ donation for humans. No, it doesn't. It says organ donation. So because of that, you haven't opted out. So you're in agreement then. And then again, with the jibby jabby, again, it's used coercion, but that's not enough for the ETs to start intervening fully, but it's still an agreement. So you agree to have the jibby jabby or whatever, or you agree what the level is we're at now is they want us to agree to something, because if they don't agree, then yeah, we get through hell on earth if we don't agree for certain things. But if we don't agree, then we're okay. That there's a level. The level of when they might intervene is another thing. But what if they go forward with this false flag alien invasion? That is a level we can call in the other beings, the benevolent beings, to come in and help us, because they're breaking the galactic rules just completely then. So they will use coercion. So again, they'll try and get us to agree with the government by using mind control, which is not fair. Nothing's fair, let's face it. They're using mind control. That's not fair. But unfortunately, the universe is not fair in that respect. So for us to but there are groups like there's the Alliance that go a little bit further than the Federation. The Federation are like, well, we can't get involved because of whatever, which they do piss me off. Whereas the Alliance is like, well, we're going to do this to help this and that to help that. So they're trying to get round, because they're saying, well, the frigging Draco do it. They're just walking all over everything. This is not right. And it's the prison brain. We need to break this planet free. And also the vibration through the sun and everything in the galaxy is also raising our vibration. But they're trying to stop this because it will break open their system as well to allow us freedom from being soul regurgitated as souls back and back, straight back again. There's also levels of soul entrapment too, like demonics. Like demonics use the form of cubes, like a consciousness cube, to trap souls in a state of rotating thought. Like if they die horrifically, they're reliving that over and over again. So they have an extra food source of like terror and fear over and over and over again. This is what happens when I've been, like Chris Fleming knows this, from Help My House is Haunted, but also I've been doing it. It's one of the reasons I'm here. It's to help break souls free. So it's because some are trapped in even lower vibrations than what our planet is. Because Earth is innocent. It's not. It's been trapped too. So our planet's trapped. And all this, the Earth needs to break free. We need to break free.
Why would the universe create something as disgusting as the reptilians, or the negative one?
It's free will. From what I gather, they just become more and more that way over millennia. And from what I understand, they were from another galaxy, and then they were probably thrown out of that galaxy eventually. And unfortunately into our neighbor again. They're souls. You can't kill them, so you can only move them. But what I see as God or source is not, it's about natural law. So horrific things, as I know of, I've witnessed horrific things. It's like, well, why would God allow that? Well, they had the free will, well, not free will, but mind control to do what they did. So it's not, it's because it's a free will universe. It's not constrained in that way. So this allows evolution, and hopefully the Draco eventually will learn a lesson and start to evolve. But they're very happy at the moment being very much
shit bags.
Yeah, basically.
So when they kind of like get somebody on board in terms of working for them, what sort of work is it that people do for them, knowing or unknowing?
For an asset. So they don't necessarily kill people. It depends what they want. Now, I mean, the demonics are a different. I feel that the Draco are controlled by the demonics. So the demonics are controlling the Draco,
Right.
and because they're infected with it. And the Draco think they're the bee's knees and they're the best thing the universe has ever seen and want to dominate the whole universe and all the rest of it. That's just their psyche, you know, the dominant, you know, we see it on Earth, you know, with the power, craziness and all the rest of it. Sorry, I'm losing track again now. Sorry, where were we again?
Repeat what you said, Andy, the question.
So it's to do with, I forgot what the question was as well.
Why?
Why? Give us some examples of how humans can be working with them and for them. What the end goal is in terms of what these Dracos want out.
Utilize humans in various different ways. We're kind of a mishmash of a being anyway, but they also know we have a connection to source. They kind of lost that connection to source a lot. It's not that they can't reconnect, but they don't want to because they just think they're the bee's knees. Yeah. But we as humanity can. Now they want to make us basically an extra army for them to do their dirty, because the reptilians, in one way, they're a bit lazy. They want to do other people to do their dirty work for them. You know, like, we'll control them. They'll take over other planets. Mm-hmm. So they want to use us as armies, as cyborgs, which they already do to a certain level. But they want to control the whole planet and also in it, as who survive, as like cybernetic organisms, so that they can then move out like the Borg and like spread out. So they're doing this with other civilizations too. So it's like spreading out using their limited amount of beings they have, but they then use other beings to do their dirty work in other parts of the universe, to take over other planets and do the same to that planet and that planet and that planet and that planet, until they take over the whole universe. Basically, that they feel like they want to take over everything. That's what would make them happy, if they can, you know, in their way of kind of happiness that they feel, which isn't, they don't feel like we do. So it's that expansionist power. They want that power all the time. For Earth, I mean, I've been to Mars. I recall being to Mars, and I did a study of the flora and fauna on Mars because I volunteered, because Mars is very boring. And it's got such a damaged ecosystem that like I would do anything to get off of the base or do something else, you know. But they did have miners there that were humans, and they were all different beings, all different human types. But where I was, they were all white Caucasian, like Aryan types, very much kind of Nazi-ish sort of regime there. And but we were not allowed to talk to the miners. If we talked to the miners, we'd get tortured. So we were not allowed to communicate with them at all. So that was a very strict rule. No talking to the miners at all. You know, we tended to be on the higher levels and they were down below on the lower levels anyway. But if we did go down there, we weren't allowed to say anything to them at all. We weren't allowed to communicate with them. The lifts they had there were electromagnetic, so they would like pulse. They were big lifts, so they were big enough for the Draco to go into, and they would pulsate as they went down. They were like this dull light pulsation as they went down. The light went brighter, duller, brighter, duller, brighter, duller as it went down the levels. And this was to do with the electromagnetic field they were using for the lifts to work. So that's how they operated that aspect on Mars. Now the where was it going? Now the base on Mars that I recall, can't see it, can you? Was basically on a crater they put the bases in craters, and they surrounded them with automatic plasma guns and an electromagnetic field, because when the ships came into land, they had to put the shields down to let the craft in. But there are insectoids on Mars, and they would learn, because they're not stupid, they would learn to attack at that point. So they have to have the automatic guns around, completely around there. So that's why they utilize craters as well, because it's easier to defend. It's like strategic location, basically. So you've got the surface pods, and then you've got the underground. So it goes various layers underground. So they do have the surface. But what you had to do when you were on Mars, every night you had to go into a pod, because the pods were there to make an equalization of your biometrics. If you're not born on Mars, if you try and live there, you will soon die. It's not because this was even on the base, because our frequency is geared to live on Earth. And if you move to another planet, you've got to restabilize that aspect, or you start destabilizing as a human being. You become very ill. Mm-hmm. So that's one aspect people don't tend to cover. You have to restabilize at night.
But Mars is well, so we're told, full of radiation. Is that true? I mean, how first of all did you end up on Mars? Because I mean, I've heard of people like there's a guy that supposedly jumps to Mars through some machine or something. I mean, what was it? A spaceship you went in, or what?
No, from what I recall, it was like a jump room. It was a jump room, because there are jump rooms from here to Mars. Now, you can go to the moon to Mars, but you can't go further. You have to use portals for further. Mm-hmm. You'd have to use a craft, go to a certain location, open a wormhole, bend time and space, go through the wormhole, and then land up to another place, and then travel to another bit. It's like a roadmap.
I see.
Well, what I would say is a galactic positioning. You need a galactic positioning system in order to travel further distances, because you can't just do it in one. So you you jump, even in a spacecraft, you jump so far, then you have to move somewhere else to find another route to go to where you want to go. So your galactic positioning system is very important. And then you call them POPs, portal opening positions. So you got the POPs. So that is a position where you can open a portal, and that'll you better know where you're going. So you open it, and then you end up from point A to point B simultaneously, because it bends and twists time and space. So as you're passing through, you're in two points of space at exactly the same time. So as you're passing through, you're going like through time and space. Now, if it's the higher dimensional craft, they have a quantum vacuum around the craft. This allows them to go to any point in time and space they want to. They don't need the portal opening positions, because they're far more advanced. The Draco don't have that. You've got to have the higher dimensional craft for that, to be able to do that. And then some beings, obviously light beings, can just come into your room or whatever. And of course they can portal on Earth. They can even the military can come into your room if they want to, by opening portals. But I was in the military, and I kept getting, they used me as an asset, basically. They use you as an asset because a certain bloodlines and certain history have been.
We lost our connection. Oh, you're breaking up, Julie, slightly.
Just repeat that, because that broke up then.
Well, most of us have probably lived on other planets and have been other races, other beings at one time or another. We're not just, most of us, there are some new beings here and some new souls here on Earth, but most of us have been brought here to Earth a long time ago. I mean, some have been created here as sort of human beings, but a lot of us haven't, especially the ones of us who are awake and understand what's going on. That's because we've got a lot of hidden memories that we don't quite access everything. But so that's why they use certain people. They target them from as soon as you come on, you're born, they target you to use you in whatever way, because they really value you as an asset to use on their behalf. And I kept having screen memories of, I kept having guard duty every 3 weeks for a week on nights. Well, this was ridiculous because nobody else did. It's like, why am I doing guard duty again and again for a whole week, every night from 11 at night to 11 in the morning? It's like, what's going on? So that was when I was working on an advanced craft for the military. And they wanted also somebody to be able to communicate with some of the advanced craft that we're visiting. Now, they tended to use women for that because it's just the way we vibrate and our soul connection and things like that. But with the Mars thing, all I do recall is that was more of a time lapse thing. I was taken and brought back. So it was taken away and then brought back while I was in the military. We on Mars, you can breathe the atmosphere, but you wouldn't survive at all because without a suit on, because the atmosphere is so dry that as you took a breath in, it would dry your lungs out instantly and it would desiccate your skin. So what you have to do is you have to wear a suit that allows to keep the moisture in, and you can have a visor up in certain places, but it has to have this constant spray of moisture because otherwise you just desiccate. This is how dry the atmosphere, we don't realize. And the plant life there that has survived has a waxy substance that covers it so that it doesn't desiccate. And most of the root system are like deep tap roots or rhizomes that exist underneath the surface. And the other creatures there are exoskeleton. They have an exoskeleton so that they don't have any soft flesh that can lose moisture. They literally have a harder outer shell.
So the pictures we get from Mars from rovers and things, Curiosity and stuff like that, are they really from Mars or are they faked or what?
Most of them are faked. Most of them are faked. They are. It's what it looks like. There is more of a fairly dull day, although it's probably a normal day in Britain actually. So it's not quite like some really hot place on the planet, but it's not like they used to portray it as this really weird. It's not like that at all. You can obviously get dust storms there, so you have to take cover, just like you have to take cover here on Earth if you get a dust storm. I mean, you've just got to, seek shelter immediately. You've got to know what's coming. But there is trapped water, obviously, and there are springs that pop up. But as soon as the springs come up, they start to evaporate. So there has to be a constant spring. So you won't really see particularly surface water. It's all underneath. But I mean, I don't know since I've been there whether there was a flash a few years ago seen on Mars and whether they've exploded aspects of it to release and terraform the planet. I don't know, because if they release enough of the trapped water on Mars, they could re-energize the atmosphere again. But when the Draco, at least, this is going back with me, they didn't want that because it mean you could then exist on the surface without direct, so you couldn't rebel or anything because you're
running free.
Yeah, you're running free. So it was in their interest not to actually do that. So I cross fingers one day, or whether it has, I don't know, because I haven't been down there. I haven't been back there. But I mean, if Elon Musk thinks he can just build a town there, because Elon may be that he is innocent about this. He may not realize that the humans have already been there and the Draco, I don't know. That they aren't going to live very long if they just pick a place and then build, because they're going to get taken out by the insectoids there.
Are these the same thing as the praying mantis, or is this a different thing?
I can't show the pictures. They're a bit like the praying mantis. I call them exothrips. So if you look up a thrip on Earth, it's a bit like an ant creature, but slightly different. It's got like a hardened exoskeleton, but they're giant. They're really big, and
it reminds me of Starship Troopers movie. If you're familiar with that movie from the mid-90s.
Yeah, it is a bit like that, but the insectoids are slightly different than those. But yeah, it is like that. And there are arachnids. Now I have a deep connection with arachnids. Now the arachnids on Mars, they're not particularly friendly, but as long as you don't enter their sector, they won't eat you. But if you enter their
how big are they?
They're more fair game. But they're about 15 foot, something like that. But I've met ones here. I've met like on my land, which is portal land, like Skinwalker Ranch, because I've got special land. There was a 20-foot one there appeared, but that's really big. It kept a bit of a distance from me because I'm a little bit, although I have a strong connection with them, it's still a little bit iffy for me.
So it was like a 20-foot tarantula.
Yeah, well, it was a different type, but yeah, there's different types of. But yeah, I mean, like, you're talking to somebody who's a complete arachnophobic only ago. I mean, a money spider would scare me crap. So for me to try and overcome that has been very, very difficult. But there's a reason for my connection with the arachnids as well. But that I probably have to go and tell you another time because it's going to take a while to explain them. But this is due to genetic experiments on myself. So they take DNA from you and then they splice beings together and things like that, which we know are going on below ground. I mean, a pure example of this that's mainstream is the goat that they spliced with an arachnid DNA to create milk. And you can look this up, that has a lactose in it that is spider web. Yeah. So they create like very strong Kevlar type suits that are.
I don't know if they were successful. I know they tried it, but I don't know if they actually succeeded in it.
Well, they've got those suits now that are just like they are on that that just look like an ordinary suit that are completely bulletproof and that. So not that we could afford them.
It sounds painful for the goat to squeeze out there, doesn't it? You know, silly string or something.
But I think it comes out as a latex sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then as it hits the air, then it starts to solidify. But you understand the experiments going on underground. It's the most horrific things that, you know, you couldn't imagine. You don't want to imagine because they're going on. I mean, even Fauci, right? He's an evil git. I mean, if you look him up, it's not just the beagle thing about letting them eat and flies eat them alive, but it's also there's documents to say that he's been splicing animals together with other animals just for the hell of it. You know,
I wouldn't be surprised. The man's a psychopath.
But he'd done it with humans too, of course.
It sounds like the old what's that
Dr.
film where you had three people sewn together, centipede, the human centipede.
Exactly.
Maybe that's inspired by that kind of thing.
Exactly, it's what it's inspired by. It's horrific.
I mean, Earth's future looks rather dark. Do you think there's any hope? Because I think this planet's fucked, basically.
I do think, but we're going to go through a bit darker period yet. I mean, we've got food shortages definitely coming because you need to analyze the food globally, and I've been doing that, and I'm growing stuff. It's really globally it's being hit. So even if everything's all right tomorrow, we're still going to have food shortages.
It's all planned. It's all planned. All of it.
Definitely.
Yeah. These people are psychopaths. All of them. Fauci, Gates, Schwab, the whole lot. They're all psychopaths.
Yeah, they're all just
scum,
insane, and like taken over by demonic entities.
Yeah, they are.
Draco, basically.
How do we take them out? Because people. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, there are awake people, and there's a lot of awake people, but there's also a lot of sleeping zombies that haven't the faintest idea what's going on.
Well, I do what I can. I've done a few podcasts. I don't particularly, I don't like doing my own podcast because I don't like looking at the little dot in the corner. So I like to speak to other people. But like I've done what I can to to wake people myself to a certain level, and I do tell people, but things will occur, and I do feel that there will be a false flag alien invasion, but that might bring in the real aliens. So it's going to be a delicate balance. I mean, a good person to watch in that respect is the dark journalist, because he's very good at getting the documents and the facts forward and things from actual CIA and all the rest of it. So he's very good on that aspect. You know, it's not his personal experience, but it's what he discovers as actual facts.
Who's the dark journalist, just for reference?
Daniel, I don't know his second name, but he is very good. If you just look him up, he's very good.
The dark journalist.
Yeah, okay. He's very good because he brings out the information, and that's what I like about him. I mean, as another I myself have looked at ways, because I've done psychology. I worked in the field of mental health after I was in the other aspects. And so I've always analysed myself with all this to make sure it's not implanted memories. What I'm recalling, is it an implanted memory? Is it real? What's going on? Because I analyse myself. But I've got a lot of other people as witnesses. I've got a lot of extra help I've had. So I'm very blessed in that respect, that I've had a huge amount of support. I've been heavily targeted, nearly killed on more than one occasion. And even when I was at the Probe, I met a lady who'd been at the Miles's conference, and she told me that she sat opposite a window. When I went on stage, she got a hit in the leg by some sort of device or laser, and she nearly screamed out in agony. She said it was aimed at you, but my knee got in the way. So even then, and I have been shot by lasers and things. So I'm trying to recover my health, because, you know, I've been freaking targeted a lot. But I'm still determined. And another thing that I got was last year I was invited to the Spacecom. It was a closed business only, the British Spacecom. Official. Well, I've got the official guide here. It had like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all the rest of them, and it was kind of the official British launch of the British Space Force and everything, and Space Command. And I was invited to that. I was like, oh, really? I'm invited. So I thought, I was like listening to my guide, should I go, or is this a complete trap? Because there was a hell of a lot of security get in there. I thought, if they want to take me out, this might be want to, but I don't know if they want to. And then I got told that it's going to be okay. So I went there and I was listening to what they were talking about, and some of the stuff they've got coming online, apart from satellites, 3D imaging satellites. So from every angle they can see what is there. They also have tracking devices coming online that can track your every move, predict your every move all the way through the day. I mean, we more or less see that. We Google the way they come up with adverts. But this is even more to the point. They literally control your every move of the day. So the AI device implanted in you would say, no, you can't go that way. You have to go this way. Oh, I believe you're going to go X, Y, and Z. Well, you're not going to do that. So complete and utter control.
Would that be done with jibby jabbies, like something they inject into you?
That they'll yeah. I mean, that's an issue. I mean, they're talking about spraying crops with AI substances that can monitor every blade of grass, every wheat sheet, everything. So yeah, everything. I'm going to have to let my dog out actually.
Okay, well, look, we've got to wrap this up now, Julie, because I mean, it's kind of, it's very fascinating. But I think we've got about 10 minutes left. But just a quick thing about the space program, the secret space program, the SSP as you call it. Now, I've heard of it. Now, what my take is that it's secret technology that we've either got from UFOs or somehow developing it ourselves. I mean, is there a British secret space program, or is it a worldwide secret space program?
It's all connected. There's different groups though, so it's almost like corporations. And I was being targeted by one group, and how I escaped that was by remote viewing the person back, because they started to do a voice to school to my mother-in-law, and then they started to target me. Well, because they did that, I could connect back to them, remotely back. So I got into their consciousness, and I was saying to them, you know, do you love your work? You know, I wasn't attacking. No point. I said, do you go home feeling happy every week? And I was getting to him. And because he didn't target me anymore, and he had an argument with his boss, and then he said, I can't do this anymore. He stopped. But then another group came in 3 days later, and these were Black Wolf special operations. They did voice and vision to school, and they were a Russian group, and they were they told me who they were and everything, and they were very honest with me. And so I said, yeah, you know, with them eventually, because they were still pretty persuasive. Yeah, they like, they kept nagging me. I was like, okay. But there's a reason for that, because not everybody can separate the consciousness. So there's a limited resource of people who can do that to a certain level. And I've got friends who are older than me, and they're using them in the system because they're lacking the amount of people who can do it. So that's why because I'm a retiree in that sort of field. That, you know, when I left the forces, then they did a few other experiments, but then I was a retiree. I was like a dormant thing. But until I started to break free, and then they started to not like that, so they were targeting me like hell. But then, of course, I broke free from them, and then aligned with another group, which is the Alliance. So once you get to a certain level, the Russians and the Americans are together. But that's certain. That's with the Alliance. That's not. There are other negative SSP. So there's not just one SSP. There's various groups.
Right. And these secret space, they would be flying saucers made on Earth by Earthlings, or what is that?
You can make them in space, but also, it's most of them are made on Earth. But the ones that I originally was working on, going back in the 80s, was a carbon fiber ceramic mix that was like a very strong material. But I was engine, so it was about we did use some sort of form of like, it looked a bit like Black Goo that helped power the engines actually, which was like a magnetic sort of black sort of blue substance that would do that, that would power that. But I could go in another time about going into more detail of how the aircraft worked and that.
Yeah,
B3s and things like that. But they were like the forerunners of they had the TR3Bs then, but there were different shape ones they were experimenting with, not just one shape, various shapes. And now how you tell what an aircraft is or what a craft is by I connect with it. So when I see a craft, because I do often, when I see a craft, I send a beam out of consciousness to it. And depending on who it is, you get this stream back from them and you can communicate with them. So if it's a higher dimensional, then you get this frequency back, or they'll talk to you, whatever. And you go, right, hi, you know, and you then tune into who they are. So you have to almost like tune your consciousness into their beaming in. That's how you do it. So like I've been in communication more recently with lion beings, and they were in like these orange spheres, which I saw go across the sky when I came back from Newcastle. I stopped off after being going on one of those demos, because I'm a veteran. I was at the front of the demo, and then I was driving back, and I got guided to sort of stop at this stop, and it looked over the whole valley, and then I saw these two orange craft come across. I thought, who are they? So it took me a bit of time to tune into them, because I'd not come across them before.
Have you had all the bullshit with the black helicopters and people flashing headlights and telephone calls and all that?
I got also told that night, because I was going to sleep in my micro camper, my car, but I got told by guides, don't go in the back. Don't go in the back. Oh, well, I need to go for a wee in that. But anyway, it's like, I don't go in the back. I thought, how long is it going to go on for this? Anyway, within half an hour or a bit of a month, two cars, and this was late at night now, 2 cars pulled in the car park. One stopped on one side of me. There was nobody else in the car park. One pulled on the other side of me. I thought, oh shit. So I started the car instant, and the guy said, go now. So I was like, okay, I don't need to be told twice. So I was like, started the engine and pulled out, and then I just went, because at that time of night, if there were drug dealers and that, they'd be pulling off to another part of the car park.
Yeah, you wouldn't go and park next to somebody if you're doing a deal.
Like, this is like, and I thought all I need is one at the back, and I'm buggered because it's a steep drop here, and then there's a car either side. So I thought, right, that's it, I'm gone. And I was warned to go then, so like I went. So that sort of thing happens quite a lot to me. Yeah, I have helicopters as well, quite often and stuff. But I try not to be, I try to just let my alarm system do it itself. So in other words, I don't go around going, oh, could I be in danger? No, I don't. I just act normally. But if I need to know, then they'll tell me. So I just act completely like anybody else. And if something occurs, they'll tell me, is it good, bad, or dangerous, or not dangerous, and what to do. And that's what you need to do. Because if you just ignore that, that's when you're in danger. That's when that's when you're going to be liable to be taken out, because you've ignored what the warning just told you.
And these are spirit guides telling you this?
It's probably my higher consciousness. Sometimes there's beings come in and tell me. It depends. But what you do is you can tell by the frequency if it's a being. Like when the military come in and tell me things, I get this frequency coming in going like a tuning fork of like both ears, and then their voice comes in. So it's an external thing, obvious external, almost like a mic coming in. Then if it's a higher dimensional being, they tend to come in the right ear, and you can tell it's not your consciousness, it's something else coming in. It's a skill that you learn. If it's a negative trying to get you, then it tends to come in my left ear, and it's a very low feeling. I've had jinn sent me all sorts of demonic sent at me, and a lot of different things, which I've had to call friends in for some of them, because I like some of them I couldn't tackle myself. But that's they don't like you trying to escape all this, so.
Okay, well, I think we'd better leave it there then, Julie. But would you come back at some point and follow this up? Because there's obviously a lot of stuff there that we want to tackle. So
sure.
That's great. All right. If people want to find out more about you, do you have a website, any books or anything like that? Or
I haven't written a book or anything. I've got a YouTube, but I've not done a lot on that. Basically, I mean, I've got my email. They can email me if they want.
Okay, if you're happy for your email to be given.
Facebook, I'll talk to people. I don't care.
Okay.
So my email is jhblackcraig1066@gmail.com. And I don't mind people. I'll talk to people, if they need to chat or anything.
Okay, and I know that you got a couple of videos on Miles Johnson's. I don't know if they've been deleted. I know he's had problems with deleted videos.
Had to go on Basis Project Censored now on YouTube.
Okay.
Shooting all the rest of him.
But there's interviews with you there on that, isn't there?
Yeah, that goes into a lot of detail with that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. We can hear your dog begging.
I know. She's
some sort of walk or something, which you can't ignore dogs, can you?
No. She's always the same. All interviews, it's like, gets to the point like, I need to go out.
Any final words, Andy?
Just really thanks to Julie for coming on, and screw the New World Order, screw Klaus Schwab, screw Bill Gates, screw Dr. Fauci, screw them all. And can we get Trump back?
Literally.
Because Biden is running the country, the United States, into the ground. Apparently, he has the worst ratings of any president in the history of the United States of America. That man is a fumbling old communist, and he needs to be removed.
Oh,
It's-
God,
it'll
I
be
totally
tough.
agree.
Time to release the black spiders.
I mean, I feel like saying to all of the Democrats and all of the liberals who voted for Biden, how's that working out for you? Do you miss
Yeah.
Orange Man yet?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
miss
exactly.
Orange Man yet? Was he really that bad? Was Trump really that? And he predicted this. I mean, maybe Trump is psychic or something, but he predicted, you know what, you're gonna pay $7 at the gas pump. It's gonna happen. It's gone up beyond $7. It's getting more to like $10 now. Trump said it would happen. Liberals said no, that's just fluff and rubbish. No, it's happened now. The American economy is screwed. But we've got to remember though that it's not really Biden. Biden is just a fumbling puppet. It's what's behind Biden that's I'm going to use the word demonic beings behind Biden that is absolutely crashing the United States and the world. They want World War III. I mean, let's face it. Zelensky, apparently, I don't really like Zelensky for many reasons, but apparently he's trying to push for peace. He's trying to push for negotiations with Russia, and the West don't want that. The West are kind of throwing arms at him and basically saying, go for it, go for it, go for it. They want World War III. They're absolutely insane. All
They've
of them.
got multiple plans. This is the thing. So they've
Yeah.
got like World War III, false flag, alien invasion, starvation, and they've not just got one plan.
I know. Oh, I know. The alien invasion thing is really interesting because I'm noticing, you know all about the Gary McKinnon thing and kind of like, hacking into kind of websites and things and seeing space ships and that. We know about this kind of thing. We've known that since, the early 2000s when Gary McKinnon was arrested, I think about 2001. But they're regurgitating these stories. I think it was the Mirror who brought this back again, giving us stuff. We already know this.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
It was an article that I already know this stuff. But why are they bringing it back now?
Yeah, someone I work with was talking about that, and I thought, that's really old news to me. But they thought it was new to them, you see. And I'm thinking, God, I'm at least 20 years ahead of this lot,
Gary McKinnon was using dial-up 56k modem, beep,
Yeah.
beep, 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 to
Yeah.
download these images.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to stock up on stringy goat's milk. That's the way to get through all this, I think. It's very nourishing. Okay. Thank you very much once again, Julie, for joining us. I went to the Probe conference recently. Julie was there along with Ben.
Did you get probed?
I think Julie did. She admitted it on tape, on Ben's tape anyway.
That was Ben.
But that's Ben's tape if you want to find out about that. Go to Ben's channel and you'll find Julie admitting
Did
that.
Miles have a nice little kind of smile on his face as he was probing people? Come here then, come on, let me do it to you.
So I've got a report coming up. Hopefully I'll tag it on the end of this video. If not, it may be in the next episode. But take a look if I do manage to do that. But thank you very much once again. Good night from myself, Neil Geddes-Ward, and it's good night from Andy. And we'll catch you next time on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Good night.
Toodle pip.